We go live to Bendigo now. The Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce joins me. Labor's announced a saving today. Anthony Albanese did the $400 million regionalisation fund back to the budget. Katie Gallagher says it's Barnaby's slush fund. So you wouldn't be too happy with that announcement, I wouldn't think.
Well, it just goes to show you that the Labor Party got no vision for regional Australia. I mean, this is why the Labor Party can't win a new seat in regional Australia. Why their seats are a threat in regional Australia. The regionalisation fund is so that regional communities can pick the industry that takes them ahead, whether that's tourism, whether that's manufacturing, to get jobs, further jobs, better paying jobs into regional Australia, to help decentralisation to regional Australia. But the Labor Party, if it's not an art gallery in Sydney, just doesn't see past the city limits. And, this is why they struggle so much in places like the Hunter Valley, because they go out and announce that, and someone in Singleton, in Muswellbrook, in Maitland just says, well, you don't believe in us anymore. That someone in Gladstone or Billawheeler or Emerald says, you've just given up on us. And someone in Alice Springs or Tennant Creek just say, well, you go there, you go to the press club, and the first thing you say to us, Mr Albanese, is you don't like us. And then you come back and say, but your granddaddies voted for us, or your grandparents voted for us. Well, that's not good enough. You've got to be better than that. You've got to offer something more than that. You can't put their jobs at threat and then come back and say, we're going to take the services and your future out. Take your jobs out, take your futures out, but please vote for us.
Katie Gallagher says there's not enough detail in that regionalisation fund, and it was the quid pro quo for you committing to net zero by 2050. Should there be more detail for them to be swung, won over?
They just don't like it. I mean, that's rubbish. I mean, they even talk about this with building better regions grants. I mean, there is detail. They just don't like regions. And that's it. That's the only way you can read this. They didn't say they're going to improve it, change it, amend it. They said they're going to get rid of it. They're going to get rid of it so Tennant Creek can't use it. They're going to get rid of it so Tamworth can't use it. They're going to get rid of it so Geraldton can't use it. They're going to get rid of it so they can't use it here at Bendigo. They also talked about community development grants. Right here, we're doing up this airport at Bendigo with a community development grant. I wonder if Lisa Chester's going to have something to say about that. Probably not, because they never stand up for regional areas. We're using it at this AEIU up there in Townsville to help kids with disabilities. That was a community development grant. There's Shepparton Sports Stadium, $15 million. That was a community development grant. I mean, there's Yipperingya School for Aboriginal kids, where I was yesterday, over $8 million. So that those kids get an opportunity for an education. Some of them travelling 280 kilometres a day. Some of them in very severe social conditions at home. So they can get rid of it from them. Those kids don't matter anymore as well. I mean, this is where the Labor Party is just so off the dial.
You've been, as you said, you've covered some turf during this campaign. Will you win on Saturday?
Look, I always leave that up to the Australian people. Stay humble. I'll tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not announcing like Mr Albanese that apparently he's going to be the Prime Minister on Sunday afternoon and he and Penny Wong are off to the Quad. That's a bit full of yourself, don't you think? Just to think you already got it in the bag, measuring up the drapes, are you, Albo? And by the way, when you go, who is the acting Prime Minister? You're not swearing that person in. I mean, that yet again just shows you the complete lack of detail for this crowd. The amateur hour, which is the Australian Labor Party at the moment, totally amateur. They can't get their cash rates right. They can't get their unemployment rates right. They can't get their NDIS right. Tanya Plibersek can't explain their housing policy. And now they've actually gone out and said, we're only going to put in two ministers, Mr Albanese and Penny Wong. And they're going to the Quad. Cyclone, you've left one out. When you go, you actually got to have an acting Prime Minister in Australia now. Who's that? You'll have to swear them in. And this is
the wages data today, though, Barnaby Joyce, shows you how much people are hurting. When inflation's up over 5%, wages growth 2.4%. We didn't really need to see that to know how tough it is for people. That's obviously if you don't get there, that'll be a big part of it.
Well, it still does. You should have gone back and asked them about who the acting Prime Minister was going to be when the Prime Minister's no longer here. But That is 2.4. Of course, it's tough. 0.7 for the quarter. The average is usually at 0.6. And it is show that it's coming off a base. It is starting to grow, and it would because unemployment is at 4%, which naturally puts pressure on wages. But I'll just go to another thing you talked about. Remember, he goes on with this 5 out of 6 jobs will be in the renewable industry in regional Australia. Well, I don't know about that, but what I do know is that a miner's probably on about $46-50 an hour, and those renewable jobs, like I know screwing on solar panels in a new solar panel farm, that's about $26 an hour. So how's that going for wage growth? Yeah, it's not growing, it's going and going in the wrong direction. It's almost halved.
Barnaby Joyce, live from the Bendigo Flying Club. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's freezing here.